If you are a conservative, you probably feel like the country dodged a bullet in the last presidential election. If so, what now? Hi, I'm Rex Rogers, and this is episode number 183 of Discerning What is Best, a podcast applying unchanging biblical principles in a rapidly changing world and a Christian worldview to current issues and everyday life. The 2024 U.S. presidential election is in the books, and former President Donald J. Trump, Republican, soundly defeated Vice President Kamala Harris, Democrat. While I don't think the president-elect walks on water, and in fact have a few concerns about his persona, I confess that I was greatly relieved at the election results. I am one, in fact, who believes the U.S. dodged a bullet, or rather, based upon my Christian faith, believe that in God's providence this country has been spared what could have been a rapid spiral into greater socialism, authoritarianism, and consequent diminishment and weakness of America. And I believe, or at least I hope, we've been given an opportunity to adjust several threatening policies and trends, including an ongoing politicization of government agencies like the Department of Justice, the FBI, and more, a continuation of so-called woke or DEI policies rooted in Marxist racist theory, an escalation of abortion on demand, and the promotion of sexual libertinism, including the mutilation of children in the propagandistically named gender-affirming care, and much more direct threats, most especially those undermining the First Amendment. I believe this because the Democrat Party has long since been captured by what's called the ill-named again progressives, while President Joe Biden promised in his 2021 inaugural address to govern in the middle. On his first day in office, he tacked hard left. Not liberal, people who still believe in the USA, but left, people who reject nearly every ideal upon which the United States was founded, and Mr. Biden then governed in a way promoted by these extremists in his party. This produced a highly inflationary economy, a debacle in Afghanistan, weakness on the world stage, including the Middle East, and an intentional, some say treasonous policy that ruined U.S. borders and invited a host of military-aged men to flood the U.S., not in a desire for freedom or a chance to work, as was the case of millions coming through Ellis Island a century ago, but rather displaying an aggressive entitlement desire for handouts, which political leaders foolishly gave out in a brash effort to secure future votes and power. Not every Democrat for sure, but the National Democrat Party is now decidedly not the party of my father-in-law, who, as a Marine, fought on Guadalcanal, coming home with a Purple Heart and a Silver Star. Back then, the Democrats were the working or middle-class man's party that cared about the opportunities for the economic have-nots. Now, National Democrat Party leaders and activists are elitist, leftist, woke, pro-choice, anti-capitalist, open-border globalists who seem to despise their own country and the freedom ideals that made it strong in the first place. This does not mean that the National Republican Party is the epitome and emblem of all that's peaches and cream, right and good. While the Republican Party's policies, including what we've seen thus far of what will be the new Trump administration, focus on law and order, fiscal responsibility, peace through strength, traditional morality, and the rediscovery of truth, meaning standards, excellence, and common sense. Still, Republican politicians are just people, and at times drawn into unwise political initiatives or, as we've seen in the so-called establishment, do-nothing, keep-your-head-down efforts to maintain their positions. So yes, I think our sovereign God blessed America, gave us another chance to be a shining city on the hill, and a beacon of freedom and prosperity for our citizenry and to the world. But the election is only a beachhead. We must follow through. In this podcast, and actually most of my writing over the last 30 years, I've tried not to write in a simply partisan way. One reason is that I believe biblical teaching and a Christian worldview should be brought to bear on all things political, social, and cultural, including political parties. Another reason I avoided openly partisan writing is that I wanted to preserve my own freedom of conscience to express my views as I deemed appropriate without allegiance to partisan politics. I never liked, and I still don't, when conservative writers or Republicans lob cheap insults at President Joe Biden for his obvious dementia and other indicators of advancing age, for example, making fun of him when he stumbles or slurs his words. This comes to us all if we live long enough. It seems to me there is a boatload of Mr. Biden's policies and political initiatives or public statements with which I disagree, all fair game for critique, So why resort to vocabulary borrowed from World Wrestling Entertainment? I never liked, and still don't, when conservative writers or Republicans lob shallow arguments at Vice President Kamala Harris. By shallow arguments, I mean references to her being a woman, a black or an Indian woman. Who cares about her sex and race? Though I will say this, Vice President Harris proved to be what many already knew or suspected going into this coup-based campaign. An inept candidate, unable to handle even softball interviews, let alone in-depth questions about national political issues. In my view, President Biden made a mistake during his campaign to become president when he publicly promised to choose a woman as vice president. Now, I'm not against women being vice president. In fact, that's part of my point. I knew when he did this, he would come under enormous pressure to choose a woman of color. Nothing wrong with this either. But candidate Biden backed himself into a corner where he felt forced to choose from a short list handed to him by leftist activists. Point is, there are many women of color who could handle the job of vice president or president, and who could run circles around VP Kamala Harris in talent, political skills, experience, and vision. And yet Mr. Biden chose the weakest in his list. So if indeed we've dodged a bullet, and the Lord has given the USA both a reprieve from what could have been and an opportunity for what could be, what are we going to do with it? I'll share this here. Number one, restore what Trump followers call common sense, especially in recommitting to the idea of absolute truth in law and order. Arrest and prosecute perpetrators. Respect and reinforce people like Daniel Penny. Reestablish federal government agencies committed to serving the American people by being transparent, honest, and diligent in the maintenance of blind justice and equality before the law. Number two, the economy is a funny thing. It works based on tangible goods and services, but it also functions on emotions, people's hopes for a better tomorrow. The Trump administration needs to keep doing what the president-elect has so far done, talk about making America great again. Now, this is a political slogan and a cliche and an exercise in patriotism, but it does capture two things, tomorrow and optimism. This, together with the president-elect's business background, hopefully a few deregulation policies, and a plan to drain the swamp, including reducing the size of government via the new DOGE, or Department of Government Efficiency, is already affecting Wall Street in a positive way. Number three, giving DEI, or diversity, equity, inclusion, or woke or critical race theory, a quick death in every corner of government, especially the Pentagon, and restore meritocracy, objectivity, individual responsibility, equal opportunity, colorblindness, and free market principles. If this can be accomplished in American education, the military, government agencies, and the law, the USA will once again become a bastion of freedom of opportunity for all. There's much more, of course, but let's remember what Scripture says. Put not your trust in princes, in a son of man in whom there is no salvation. And when his breath departs, he returns to the earth. On that very day, his plans perish. And also, I urge that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings, and all who are in high positions, that we may lead a peaceful and quiet life, godly and dignified in every way. Well, we'll see you again soon. This podcast is about discerning what is best. If you find this thought-provoking and helpful, follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Download an episode for your friends. And for more Christian commentary, check my website, REXM as in Martin, that's rexmrogers.com. Or check my YouTube channel at Dr. Rex Rogers for more podcasts and videos. And remember, it is for freedom Christ has set us free. Stand firm.